Hey guys, Willie and Murphy here, and welcome back to another video on the Classic Mini.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
Now, if you remember from the previous episodes I've done, I have stripped down and rebuilt the rear suspension. Now, when I took it out for the first test drive, there was a knocking coming from the passenger front. It was quite a clear knock. It wasn't happening all the time, and there wasn't anything that really triggered it either. So I'm going to jack the front up, and I'm going to have a little look around and see if I can see anything out of the ordinary. When I was doing the rear suspension, I obviously disconnected the brakes. I have bled the brakes, and I have bled this brake here, but I haven't removed the wheel. I've just put it on lock and got underneath and managed to de-adjust that nipple. So I guess let's just have a look and see if we can find any faults. I think it's going to be quite obvious because the knock is quite loud and it's quite persistent, but sometimes a fault is hidden by another fault. So let's go check it out. Okay, so the key's in the ignition to make sure that steering lock isn't going on. So I've got the car jacked up at the front just for now, and I'm going to have a look and see if I can see anything with the play on the wheel. I'm not going to go underneath the car because no axle stands fitted, but I'm hoping I can locate this fault straight away. Okay, so the first job I'm going to do is to have a look around and see if there's anything I can see that's loose. On these models here, you've got a large amount of electrical stuff above the wheel. You've got electrical fan, which that's not loose. A shock absorber, no. There is a bottle above, which isn't loose either. And there is another canister. I have no idea what that is, but that's not loose either. The heater ducts at the front, they're all pretty tight. So I imagine it's going to be more wheel based. So there's a few checks you can do here. You can grab the wheel side to side, checking for your steering arm, top and bottom, checking for your ball joints, and diagonally across will typically check for your wheel bearing. Things you can do as well is spin the wheel up. If you've got a car with suspension springs, you can hold on to that spring and you should be able to feel some vibration through that to sort of simulate the road. So let's start with side to side. Okay, there's a little bit of play there. Top and bottom. There's a bit of play there also. And across. Again, alright, so there's play in all three areas. That's not to say that all three things are wrong, but what it means now is I have to look underneath the car and see if we can locate any movement at any of these joints. So we'll check in underneath when we're shaking the wheel for the track rod end. A way to do it is to get one person to shake the wheel, hold down on the track rod end, and that sort of adds some pressure in that ball joint. If the play goes, there's your fault. You could also find further down into your drumstick, into your steering arm, into your steering rack could be a fault. I had an old Mini that had that fault. Top and bottom, you should be able to see movement in either the top or bottom ball joints. They'll probably just rock within the mount. Failing that, none of that will move, and you'll see the actual whole hub moving. The hub moving would indicate that it will be a wheel bearing fault. So let's take a quick look underneath and see what we can find. Right, okay, so with the car jacked up in the air, you should be able to get a good access and putting the car on lock. So you can see the bleed nipple that I've adjusted up here. This is going to be your brake caliper, your drive shaft, your lower arm, your tie bar, your shock absorber up here, your top suspension arm, your top ball joint, which is up here, and then your lower ball joint down here. So we'll do a quick test now to rock the wheel top and bottom. So rocking it from this way. Now that will be able to hopefully indicate, and you can see any play. We'll look at the bottom ball joint first. There's absolutely no play whatsoever in that bottom ball joint. We'll check the top one. Again, there's no play in that ball joint there. Now what you can see from this is this back plate here actually moving. So that's leading me towards the idea that it could be a wheel bearing fault. Last one to check would be the steering arm. So we're going on a different lock here. Okay, so using the phone camera here, you should be able to get access down to check. So that here is the steering arm and that is the track rod end. Rocking the side to side. You should be able to see any movement in that. Let's put the phone down for a second. So we're going to angle that so you can see still. If I push down on this arm and rock it, it should hopefully be no play. Now the fact that I can still feel that play there would still indicate to me that it's a wheel bearing issue. So let's get the wheel off and then we can investigate further. So, just grabbing the hub here, I can feel some play automatically in that joint. So I'm going to take this split pin off and let's quickly try and adjust that. Now what you have an issue with here on your own is the wheel is going to want to turn. So even though this is an automatic, I can put it in park and it will still try and rotate. So what I'll do is I'll get a different wheel, a 12-inch wheel with a big centre hole, bolt that on, and I should be able to get my hub nut through the middle to see if I can adjust that. Okay, so I've got the spare from this car, and as you can see, it's got a much larger diameter hole. So I'll take that split pin out. Okay, so we'll lower the car back to the ground, we'll get a socket on here and try and tighten that up. Okay, so before I even do anything, I'm going to make sure that the car is in gear. In this, I'm going to put it in park, and I'll make sure the handbrake's on as well. So that will hopefully sort of reduce the risk of the car rolling backwards or forwards. Okay, so let's see if we can get it any tighter. I should hopefully be able to get a split pin through there and see if that's going to reduce the play. Okay, so using a new pin, it's nice and straight, that should go through a little bit easier. He says. Okay. That's the pin now through, so it's not going to go anywhere. It's just to make sure that that is now going to be nice and tight. Let's get the car back in the air and see if there's any play there still. Okay, so the play has been significantly reduced. I don't know if you can hear that or not, or even we can see it. There is still enough play there to warrant replacing this wheel bearing. Okay, so what does this mean then? Well, we have checked the bearing and we checked the play all over. We checked ball joints, track rod ends and wheel bearings. There was no play in the ball joints, there was no play in the track rod ends, but there was play in that wheel bearing there. So we've tightened up the nut, and unfortunately the play, although it is reduced, it is still there. So we're going to have to replace that wheel bearing. What we're going to do next is remove the wheel back off and just check to make sure there's no other damage. Where the wheel bearing is maybe off centre or is not been tight enough maybe, they have the risk of, you can see the hub moving, and if the hub's doing this as you're driving along the road, the disc will be doing the same. You might get uneven brake wear, you could actually end up causing damage to the tyre, you could end up causing damage to ball joints, etc. So I'm just going to check and see how we're getting on. I have no idea if anything else is going to be doing at this stage. Let's get the wheel back off and have another look. Okay, so good news is that the tyre looks absolutely brand new still. That's not to say that there wasn't any fault with that and that has been changed, but looking at the rest of the car, it's in really good condition, and I imagine that tyre is the tyre it came across overseas with. Ice cream. Looking at the brakes, however, the brakes have seen better days. The disc itself, as you rub your finger across the actual face of the disc, it's a bit like a wave. It's got scoring marks in it, which is typically due to heat. So my recommendation here would be to replace those discs and pads as well. Because of that uneven wear, it's just a little bit, I don't know. You probably could get away with it, but the brake efficiency will be reduced quite significantly because of that. So I'm going to speak to the owner, and I'm going to come back and hopefully get the okay, or we'll try and clean up the pads and we'll put it back on the road until a later date. So wheel bearing will need to be replaced, whether I do it, whether someone else does it, but that is the fault there with the front brakes. So just a quick video today, hopefully showing you ways to check for any knocks and bumps. If you have enjoyed it, please hit that thumbs up button, please comment below, and if you can, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.